Right, let's analyze the poem Heritage by Gwendolyn B. Bennett. First thing we want to know is that the poem was written in 1923, and we begin our analysis by first just making some general observations. First thing, counting the stanzas, we notice that there are a total of 6 stanzas. Each stanza has 3 lines, so that would be a tercet. All right, now let's look at how the lines begin. Every single stanza begins with I want to, and then it is followed by a verb. See repeats twice there. Hear, hears twice, breathe, feel. So if we were to look at the verbs in isolation, we would see that it progresses in sensory experience. So I want to see, hear, breathe, and then feel. Also, we can observe that the poem begins, or it is written, in first person with that pronoun I. Right? Now let's zoom in and examine each stanza. So the first stanza has a reference to nature. We see this with the mention of the palm trees. Right? So that speaks to nature. Little pointed fingers makes me think about Angelina Grimke's poem, The Black Finger. And so we start in nature, and then when we get to the third line, we see that there is now a mention of human, between the eye and the fingers. Looking at the second stanza, we have the introduction of Negro girls. So we see Negro girls set in nature again. We also see the youth mentioned, and we see a positive portrayal of black girls in nature, and keeping in mind that during the 1920s it was very popular for blackface, and so positive portrayals of black girls was not common. Now let's get to the third stanza. In the third stanza, we see a reference to the Sphinx. So that's taking us back to Africa, which echoes the theme of heritage. So we see that there. Now the fourth stanza, we have the mention of black race, but I want you to also notice the use of the word strange. Why do you think the speaker of this poem would use the word strange to describe the black race? Also keeping in mind that words don't necessarily mean the same thing in the 1923 as they do in present day. This line makes me think about Phyllis Wheatley's description of the black race as a diabolical die, and her reference to how the black race is viewed. Then now let's examine this fifth stanza. We have the mention of a specific type of flower. So we also have again a reference to nature, and the reference to the now again is speaking to this heritage, which is in the title of Africa. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this lotus flower. So here's a picture of a lotus flower. It is an Egyptian flower. So again, that connection to heritage and Africa. And it is considered a sacred flower in many Eastern countries, and it is known for its beauty. Here's an interesting fact about the lotus flower. It has a unique life cycle. Its roots are latched in mud, and it submerges itself every night into water. Miraculously, in the morning, it reblossoms and it blossoms into something that is sparkling clean. So, how might the lotus flower be a parallel, and that's a symbol for parallel, to African Americans during the 1920s? In terms of maybe the lotus was a symbol of resilience coming from slavery, emancipation, the Reconstruction, Great Migration. So again, we see that the speaker of this poem is speaking with pride about the heritage, African heritage. The stanza also mentions another aspect of nature that we see here. And this is a picture of tendrils, right? So what's interesting about tendrils is that they are a slender, specialized stem or leaf. This makes me think about the finger that's mentioned in the first stanza. And this particular plant is thread-like in shape. We see that there with how slender it is. That is used by climbing plants for support. So, again, we're seeing a poet intentionally reference specific types of plants in nature and think about how that may go along with the title Echo and what the poem is communicating. All right, so in the sixth stanza, we're no longer seeing the references to nature, but we do have some emotion here with feeling. We do have that my, right? Which we have I and my, which denote a first person point of view. However, that my is also referencing a collective by saying my sad people, right? So it's very common in poetry from Black poets to reference the collective voice and the collective experience of Black folk. So even though the poem is talking about an individual heritage as well as a collective heritage. Also, let's zoom in here on this minstrel smile. What is the poet talking about there, or the speaker of the poem? So minstrels have a connection to blackface, where white actors would paint their faces black and portray Black people in singing and dancing. Also, we see here the word smile, and that is significant. We definitely can hear some echoes of Paul Laurence Dunbar's We Wear the Mask. He has a line that talks about we wear the mask that grins. So we see that echo here with smile. Also, the fact that the sad people's soul is hidden speaks to the veil that W.E.B. Du Bois talks about in The Soul of Black Folks. So that is an analysis of that poem. Feel free to take your own notes, and based on that analysis, what do you think that the poem is communicating?